The war had ended, but the pain still lived in the hearts of many. The battlefield was quiet now, but the memories stayed loud. On a remote human base, deep in the cold, rocky lands of Planet Ceros, soldiers stood guard, cleaned weapons, and tried to forget. Among them was Ethan, a human soldier who had lost friends in the last alien attack. He didn't smile much anymore. His eyes looked tired, and he spoke only when needed. The base was built like a small fortress, surrounded by stone cliffs and wired fences. Inside it had metal halls, dim lights, and cold air that never seemed to go away. It wasn't a place of peace. It was a place where people waited for orders, or for more war. One day the captain called Ethan to a storage room. "We caught one of them," the captain said in a cold voice. "She's your problem now. Guard her. Don't get soft." Ethan nodded and followed two guards down a narrow hallway. They opened a heavy door. Inside, chained to a metal bar, sat a young alien girl. Her skin was pale blue, and her dark hair fell over her shoulders like soft threads. She looked no older than 16 in human years. Her eyes, large and violet, stared at the floor. Didn't move when the door opened. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. "She's been like that since we brought her in," one of the guards said. "Quiet, won't talk, won't eat much." Ethan stepped forward. The girl didn't even look at him. She sat with her knees close to her chest. Her clothes were torn. Her right leg was wrapped in old cloth, stained with dry blood. "She hurt?" Ethan asked, his voice flat. "Probably, who cares?" the guard replied. "Just watch her, feed her if you want. No one's coming to take her back." The door closed, leaving Ethan alone with her. For a while, he just stood there, leaning against the wall. The girl didn't move. She didn't look afraid. She looked tired, like something inside her had already given up. He placed a water bottle and a protein bar near her. "Eat," he said. She didn't move. The next day was the same, and the next. Ethan would sit in the corner watching her. She would sit in her own corner, silent. Sometimes she touched her leg gently, like it hurt her badly. She never made a sound. By the fourth day, his anger grew. He still remembered the friends he had lost in battle. He still remembered the flames, the screams, the alien ships in the sky. And now, here was one of them, sitting quietly like nothing had happened. That evening, Ethan walked into the room and saw her trying to stretch her leg. She winced. Her hand shook. Still, no sound came from her mouth. No cry, no words. Something in him snapped. "Why don't you speak?" He said louder than usual. "Why don't you fight? Are you mocking me?" She didn't answer. She just lowered her head. Ethan stepped forward. In a moment of frustration, he picked up a metal rod used to hold equipment and hit her injured leg once. Not too hard, but hard enough to hurt. He waited for a scream. There was none. Instead, she trembled. Slightly, her head bent lower. Her eyes closed and soft tears rolled down her cheeks. She didn't cry out. She didn't yell. She just cried quietly. It's like someone who had already cried too much. Ethan froze. The rod slipped from his hand and clattered to the ground. He stared at her tears. They were not angry tears. They were not hateful. They were sad, tired, heavy. His heart felt cold. He stepped back, unsure what to do. The room felt too quiet, like the silence had weight. He left without a word. That night, he couldn't sleep. He lay on his bunk, staring at the ceiling. The girl's face wouldn't leave his mind. Her tears, her silence, her broken leg. He remembered her eyes not full of fear, not full of rage. Just empty sadness. She didn't even scream, he whispered to himself. Why didn't she scream? The next morning, he brought her warm bread and a clean bandage. She didn't look at him. But when he knelt and carefully unwrapped her leg, she didn't stop him either. The wound was worse than he thought, swollen and covered in dirt. She must have been hiding the pain for days. He cleaned it slowly. Her body flinched once, but she said nothing. When he was done, he placed the food near her again. "You need to eat," he said, this time softly. She looked at him, just for a second, then looked away. He noticed something else. Her hands were rough, like someone who worked with herbs or tools. Her fingers were long and careful, not the kind used for weapons. "You're not a soldier, are you?" he asked, but she didn't answer. He sighed. "Just eat. I'll be back later." Before leaving, he glanced at the tears still dried on her cheeks from the night before. Something inside him was changing. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her story. But for the first time, Ethan started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, he had been wrong. The next morning, Ethan walked back to the storage room with slower steps. His thoughts were not clear. He wasn't sure what he would say. He wasn't even sure if she would look at him again. In his hands, he carried a small first aid kit and a new blanket. The cold inside the room had always been sharp, and she had only a thin cloth to cover herself. When he opened the door, the girl was sitting in the same spot. Her legs were drawn close, her arms wrapped around them. She looked weak, like someone running out of strength. The food from yesterday was half-eaten, but that was more than before. He noticed the water bottle was empty. Small signs, tiny steps. "Morning," Ethan said quietly. She didn't answer, but her eyes lifted slightly to see what he brought. He stepped forward and sat down on the floor a few feet away. "I brought something for your leg." And this he held up the blanket. "It's not much, but it's warm." He gently placed the blanket near her. She reached out slowly, like she expected him to pull it away. But when he didn't, she took it and wrapped it around her shoulders. Her movements were careful. It's like someone who hadn't been treated kindly in a long time. Ethan opened the first aid kit and held up the bandage and cream. "Can I?" he asked. She hesitated, then gave a small nod. He unwrapped the old cloth from her leg. The wound was bad, deep, red, encrusted. Cleaned it as gently as he could. Her breath caught once, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she looked at him, not angry, just watching. He spoke softly while working. "I'm sorry about before. I shouldn't have done that, I thought. I don't know what I thought. I was angry, but that doesn't make it right." She looked down at her leg. A few seconds passed in silence. Then she whispered something. The words were soft, strange, and not from any human language. Ethan blinked in surprise. He didn't understand, but he recorded it with his wristband's translator app. Later that night, back in his quarters, he played the recording. The translation came slowly. It said, "Why does he hurt but then help?" Ethan sat still for a long time after that. He read the sentence over and over. Why does he hurt but then help? The words made his chest feel heavy. Over the next few days, he visited her often. He brought food, water, and clean bandages. He talked to her gently, even if she didn't always reply. Sometimes she nodded. Sometimes she just listened. But she no longer looked at him like he was a threat. He learned her name from the translator, Nara. He said it one morning just to see her reaction. "Nara, is that your name?" She looked up, surprised. Her lips moved slowly, and she repeated it. In her own voice, "Nara." Ethan smiled. "Okay, I'm Ethan." She tilted her head a little. Then they repeated each other's names a few times. It was a small thing, but for Ethan, it felt big. Like they were no longer strangers. One day he asked her what she was doing on the battlefield. "Were you a soldier?" She shook her head. Then she pointed to her own hands and made small motions like mixing something in a bowl. Ethan didn't understand at first. He opened the translator again. After a short pause, it spoke. "Healer." Ethan blinked. "You're a healer?" She nodded. Suddenly everything made sense. Her quiet nature, her careful hands, her sadness. She wasn't trained to fight. She was trained to save. "You were caught during the battle?" Ethan asked gently. Nara looked down. Her hands gripped the blanket tighter. She nodded once. Ethan sat in silence for a while. Then he whispered, "I'm sorry." Nara didn't speak, but her eyes met his. And in that moment, Ethan saw something that had been missing for days: trust. The bond between them grew, slowly like sunlight creeping through a thick forest. Ethan didn't tell anyone what he was doing. He kept the door locked during visits. He told the others she wasn't talking, wasn't moving, and they stopped asking. No one really cared about the alien girl anyway. Not like he did now. One evening, Nara surprised him. She stood up, weak, but steady. She walked a few steps, limping. On her injured leg and pointed at the wall, Ethan followed her finger. It was just a small metal panel, loose on the edge.
"What's that?"
he asked. She spoke a few soft words. The translator said, "Not safe, watchers." Ethan paused. He checked the panel and found a small, hidden camera behind it, one that wasn't supposed to be there. Cursed under his breath and pulled it out. "They've been watching you," he muttered. Nara sat down again, her breathing slow. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat on his bunk and thought hard. Someone had placed that camera on purpose, maybe to spy on her, maybe to test her, maybe to catch someone like him, someone who started to care. But he didn't regret helping her. He had seen her pain. Silence. Her tears. And now, her courage. Ethan knew then, this wasn't just about duty anymore. This was about doing what was right. The next morning, Ethan arrived earlier than usual. He found Nara sitting quietly, but there was something different in her eyes. She didn't look away when he entered. Instead, she gave a small nod, like a greeting. Ethan returned it with a soft smile and sat down near her. He handed her a piece of fruit and fresh bread. She accepted it with careful fingers, taking slow bites. Her hands still trembled a little, but her face was calmer now. "They put a camera in your room," Ethan said, keeping his voice low. Someone was watching. Nara looked up. Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Don't worry," he added. "I removed it. But I think someone here doesn't trust me." Nara placed her food down and motioned toward her chest, then toward him. The translator read her gesture. "You changed." Ethan nodded. "Did. You showed me something I forgot." She tilted her head. "Kindness," he whispered. They sat in silence for a while. Outside, the wind howled across the rocks, but inside the room it was warm and still. Ethan checked her wound again. It was healing slowly, but better than before. Her limp was less painful, and the swelling had gone down. He smiled at the progress. "You're strong," he said. Nara touched her chest again, then pointed to him. "You care?" Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. It wasn't just about duty anymore. It wasn't just about regret. It was about connection. It's about seeing someone not as a prisoner or an enemy, but as a person. Days passed, and their bond deepened. They spoke more using short phrases and gestures. Da-da. Nara began to hum softly when she was alone, strange alien tunes that sounded like wind through trees. Ethan often listened from the hallway, pretending to check his gear, but really just standing there, feeling peace in her music. Then one afternoon, Captain Dale came looking for him. "You've been spending too much time in there," the captain said. Ethan stayed calm, "Just doing my job." "Don't get soft," Dale warned. "Command wants all remaining prisoners moved next week. Higher security facility. No need to keep them here." Ethan's heart sank. "She's not dangerous. She's a healer." "She's still one of them," the captain said sharply. "We don't take chances." After the captain walked away, Ethan stood in silence, staring at the wall. He felt cold again, but not from the air. It was the fear creeping back. He had seen what happened in those high-security places. Nara wouldn't survive there, not with her injury, not with her gentle soul. He made a choice that evening. He would help her escape. He waited until the night guard shift changed. The base's back tunnels were rarely used, and most soldiers avoided them because they were dark and half-flooded. Ethan memorized the map on his wrist device and marked the safest path to the outer rocks. He returned to Nara's room with a flashlight, a small pack of supplies, and a nervous heart. "Nara," he whispered. Unlocking the door, she looked at him with confusion. "We're leaving," he said. "Tonight?" She stood slowly, limping toward him. Her eyes asked 1,000 silent questions, but she didn't resist. She trusted him. Ethan wrapped her in a cloak and helped her walk. Together, they moved through the quiet halls. The night was cold, the base almost silent, except for the hum of distant generators. Ethan knew every camera path, every blind spot. He had studied it for days. They entered the back tunnels. The air was damp and smelled like metal and stone. Nara stumbled once, but Ethan caught her. She clung to his arm as they moved through the dark. They didn't speak. They couldn't. Even one noise could mean discovery, but their silence was strong. Comforting, after what felt like hours, they reached the edge of the outer rocks. Above them, the sky was full of stars. The wind blew hard, and Nara shivered. Ethan placed the cloak tighter around her and helped her sit behind a large boulder. "We'll rest here," he said. She nodded, breathing hard. He gave her water and watched her drink. For the first time in weeks, she looked free. Tired but free. But then dash sirens, loud, sharp, rising across the base. They had been discovered. Ethan's heart raced. He looked at Nara. "We have to move." But she touched his arm and pointed to the sky. Lights, ships, Nara, single quotes, as people they were coming. "You called them?" Ethan asked. She nodded slowly. "Home." As the ships lowered, searchlights swept across the land. Human soldiers started moving in the distance, shouting, searching. Ethan grabbed Nara's hand and helped her up. Blaster fire echoed. They ran. Behind rocks, crawling and climbing. Ethan shielded her every time. Once, a flash of light flew past them and hit his shoulder. He cried out, falling to one knee. Nara pulled him up, tears in her eyes. She wasn't crying for herself. She was crying for him. He gritted his teeth and pushed forward. They reached a clearing where one alien ship hovered low, its ramp open. Alien soldiers stood ready, but when they saw Nara, they lowered their weapons. She turned back and looked at Ethan. He nodded. "Go." She reached for his hand and held it tightly. Her voice was soft. "Come." Ethan hesitated. His world was here. His orders. His people. His past. But then he looked at her, and he took a step forward. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped onto the ramp of the alien ship. The metal floor was cold beneath his boots, but he felt warmth from Nara's hand still holding his. The alien soldiers watched them carefully, but there was no hostility in their eyes. They knew Nara. She was one of them. And now, Ethan was part of this moment too. Inside the ship, the walls glowed softly with a blue light. The air smelled different, fresh, but strange. Ethan's heart pounded. He was far from home, far from everything he knew, yet something about this place felt calm. Nara led him through narrow corridors, past rooms filled with strange plants and glowing crystals. She moved with grace, even though her legs still hurt. Ethan followed, trying to keep up, feeling like a stranger in a strange land. They reached a large room where tall aliens waited. Their skin was the same pale blue as Nara's, but their faces were older, wiser. One of them stepped forward and looked at Ethan. "You saved Nara," the elder said through a translator device. His voice was deep but kind. Ethan nodded. "I did. She needed help. She didn't deserve to suffer." The elder studied Ethan for a long moment. Then he spoke. "You showed honor, human. Not all your kind do this." Ethan felt a strange pride. For years, humans and aliens had fought. Many times they had been enemies. But now, here was proof that things could be different. The elder waved a hand, and a soft bed was brought out. Ethan was exhausted. He sat down slowly. Nara knelt beside him, placing her hand on his shoulder. "Thank you," she said. Ethan smiled. Weakly, "Thank you for saving me too." Days passed inside the ship, and Ethan learned more about Nara's people, the Valaria. They were peaceful, healers of many worlds. They used their knowledge of plants and crystals to cure wounds and sickness. Their weapons were few because they preferred healing over fighting. Nara's wound healed fast with their care. She began to teach Ethan simple words in her language, showing him herbs and remedies. Ethan found peace in learning. It was different. From war, it was hope. But peace was not easy. One day alarms sounded. Red lights flashed. The ship shook as if caught in a storm. Ethan stood quickly, gripping a rail. "What's happening?" he asked Nara. "They follow us," she said quietly. The ship's captain appeared. "Human, we have enemies. nearby human enemies. Ethan's heart sank. His own people were chasing them, the Valari ship prepared to defend itself. Ethan was given a small weapon not to harm, but to protect. Outside, human warships appeared, blocking their path. A tense silence filled the ship as messages were sent back and forth. Ethan felt torn. He belonged to one side, but his heart was with the Valari now. The captain turned to him. "You understand what must happen? Cannot let them take her again." Ethan nodded. The battle was fierce, but short. The Valari ship used its speed and shields to avoid damage. It was clear the humans chasing them were not prepared for such tactics. After escaping, the ship landed on a quiet moon. Ethan and Nara stepped out into soft grass and tall trees. It was a world of healing and peace. There, Ethan met more Velaraf families, elders, children. They welcomed him without fear or anger. For the first time in a long time, Ethan felt hope. For the future, he and Nara spent days talking, sharing stories. Ethan told her about human wars, about loss and pain. Nara told him about her peaceful village, her family, and the dreams she held. One evening, as the sun set behind the trees, Nara took Ethan's hand and led him to a small garden. "This is where I heal," she said. She showed him how to use plants to make salves and teas. Ethan watched closely, fascinated by her gentle touch and deep knowledge. "You are a healer, Nara," he said softly. "And you are a friend," she replied. But even in this peaceful place, shadows lurked. One night, Ethan heard whispers outside his quarters. He stepped outside and saw a group of Valari elders speaking urgently. "They will come again," one said. "The war is not over." Ethan's heart sank. No matter how far he traveled, the pain of war followed. The next day, Ethan met the elder who had first spoken to him. "We must prepare," the elder said. "Our enemies are strong, but we have hope because of you, human." Ethan nodded. "We'll do whatever I can." As days turned into weeks, Ethan trained with the Valari. He learned their ways, not just healing, but also how to defend without violence. He grew stronger, faster, and wiser. Nara stayed by his side, teaching and encouraging him. Their bond grew deeper, no longer just friend and prisoner, but two souls who had found each other through pain and kindness. One afternoon, a scout rushed in with urgent news. "Human ships are approaching this system," he said. Ethan looked at Nara. "They want to find you." Nara's face was calm, but her eyes held fear. "Then we will be ready," Ethan said. He realized then that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just a soldier for one side. He was a bridge between two worlds that had fought for too long, and he was ready to fight not with anger or hate, but with courage and hope. The warning came just before dawn. Ethan was already awake, sitting outside the healing garden with Nara. The sky was dark, but the stars burned bright. The calm of the night felt fragile. Suddenly, a scout rushed toward them, breathless. "Human ships near the system," he gasped. "They're coming fast." Ethan's heart tightened. He looked at Nara. Her face was calm, but her eyes showed worry. "We must prepare," Ethan said firmly. Inside the Valari council chamber, the elders gathered quickly. The air was thick with tension. Ethan stood beside Nara, feeling the weight of responsibility. "Our enemies seek to capture Nara again," Chief Elder said. "We must protect her and our people." Ethan nodded. "I will fight with you, not as an enemy, but as an ally." The elders looked at him with respect. Some smiled, others remained serious. The war had changed many things, but courage was still valued. Over the next days, the Valari worked to strengthen their defenses. Ethan trained harder than ever. He learned to use alien weapons and shields, tools designed for defense and protection. He also worked with the healers. Learning how to tend wounds quickly during battle, Nara stayed close to him, offering support. Their bond was strong. She no longer hid her feelings, and Ethan did not hide his. One afternoon, as they walked through the tall trees, Ethan asked, "Why did you never scream when I hurt you?" Nara looked down, thinking. After a moment, she said softly, "My people mourn in silence. We do not waste energy on noise. Pain is carried quietly, like a heavy stone inside. Ethan reached for her hand. I didn't understand then. But I see now. She smiled faintly. You have learned much. More than most. Then the attack came. The sky lit up with explosions as human warships appeared above the Valari moon. Ships moved fast, firing beams of energy toward the surface. The Valari responded quickly. Defensive shields rose around their homes. Soldiers took their positions, ready to protect. Ethan stood beside Nara, watching the battle unfold. Stay safe, he said, his voice low. Nara nodded. You too. The battle was fierce. Beams of light crossed the sky like shooting stars. The ground shook with the power of weapons. Some ships crashed, others dodged narrowly. Ethan moved with the soldiers, using his new skills to protect key points. He felt the weight of the small weapon in his hands, a symbol of his new role as protector, not destroyer. At one point, Ethan saw a human soldier fall near a cliff edge, injured and helpless. Without thinking, he ran to help, carrying the soldier. To safety, the soldiers around him watched in surprise. A human helping one of their own in the middle of enemy land. The battle raged for hours, but the Valari held their ground. The attackers eventually retreated, leaving behind damaged ships in silence. After the fight, Ethan and Nara walked through the damaged village. Trees were broken, small fires burned, but the people were alive. We survived, Ethan said. Nara looked at him because of you. Ethan shook his head. Because of all of us. Because we chose to protect, not destroy. In the quiet moments after the battle, Ethan learned more about Nara's past. She told him about her village, a small place filled with laughter and care. She spoke of her family, her mother, a healer like her, and her younger brother who dreamed of flying ships. I was taken away before I could say goodbye, she said, her voice breaking. Ethan reached out, holding her hand gently. You have a new family now here. Their connection deepened. Ethan felt a peace he had never known before. He realized that this was more than just survival. It was a chance to build something new, but the future was uncertain. One day, elders summoned Ethan and Nara. The humans will not give up, the chief elder said. We must seek peace before more blood is spilled. Ethan agreed. I will return to my people and speak for you. Maybe my voice can change minds. Nara smiled, and I will stand with you. They prepared for the journey back to the human fleet, a journey filled with risk, hope, and the chance for a new beginning. As Ethan looked at the stars that night, he thought of the girl who cried silently, the girl who changed him. And he knew, no matter what happened, he would never forget her. Ethan stood on the deck of the Valari ship, watching the stars stretch across the dark sky. Beside him, Nara was quiet, her eyes reflecting the distant lights of human ships ahead. They were returning to the place where it all began, the human fleet that once saw Nara as a prisoner, now as a symbol of hope. The journey was tense. Ethan knew the fleet would not welcome them easily. Humans feared the unknown, and many still saw aliens as enemies, but he believed things could change. Had to believe. When the Valari ship approached the human base, the fleet commander sent a warning signal. Human warships surrounded the alien vessel, weapons ready. Identify yourselves. A harsh voice commanded. Ethan stepped forward, raising his hands to show peace. I am Ethan. This is Nara, a healer from the Valari people. We come in peace. A long moment, silence fell. Then, slowly, a human ship lowered its weapons. A small team boarded the Valari ship. Ethan and Nara were led to the fleet commander, a stern woman named Captain Maya. She looked at them carefully. Why should we trust you? Maya asked. You were an alien, and you were a human who helped. Ethan met her gaze. Because I have seen what hate does. Because I know there is more to our world than war. Nara is a healer. She is not our enemy. And together, we can build peace. Maya studied them. Then, after a moment, she nodded. We will hear you, but trust must be earned. meetings were held. Humans and Valari spoke of their histories, their fears and hopes. Ethan told the story of Nara's silent tears. The moment he saw her pain and changed. Many listened, some skeptics, but others hopeful. Nara shared her knowledge of healing and peace. She helped 10 wounded soldiers from both sides. Her gentle hands and quiet strength began to heal wounds beyond. The body, Ethan and Nara worked together to build bridges between their peoples. They traveled between ships and Valari homes, sharing stories, helping heal, and teaching understanding. But peace was not easy. Old fears ran deep. Some humans whispered that aliens could not be trusted. Some Valari feared humans would attack. Again, Ethan knew the road ahead was long. One day, as he walked with Nara through the human base gardens, a group of young soldiers approached. They were wary, but curious. "Why do you trust her?" one asked Ethan. He smiled. "Because she taught me what courage really means. Courage is not just fighting. It is forgiving, helping, and changing." Nara stepped forward. "And I trust humans because some chose kindness over hate. I see that in Ethan." The soldiers looked at each other, then nodded slowly. Years passed. The human and Valari alliance grew stronger. Trade, culture, and friendship blossomed. Ethan and Nara's story became a symbol of hope, of change, of what could be when pain is met with kindness. One evening, Ethan and Nara stood on a hill overlooking a joint human Valari city. Lights sparkled below like stars brought to earth. "Look how far we have come," Nara said softly. Ethan smiled, and it all started with a quiet tear. They held hands, knowing the future was theirs, two shaped together. Ethan no longer carried regret. Instead, he carried hope. Hope born from pain, healed by kindness, and made strong by love. And so, the story of the human who struck a silent alien and the alien who cried quietly became a legend in the galaxy, a reminder that sometimes the strongest battles are fought with gentle hearts.